Hello! Welcome back to Radio Free USA, sponsored, as always, by Democratic Memes. This is Rahul. We have a special two-man podcast this week. We're joined with Tarek. How are you doing, buddy?
I'm good. Proud member of the two-man army here.
Yeah, two-man army. You might notice conspicuous absence. Tim is actually out golfing. He's doing some undercover research into the lifestyle of Trump. He's eating a lot of KFC and
Chocolate cake.
Yeah, chocolate cake. And we hope to see his findings pretty soon.
That's right. Contrary to popular belief, Tim was not fired by this podcast, unlike Scaramucci, but we'll get to that in a bit.
That's right. I think the first thing we're going to have to talk about is the curse of the clown of the week continues. So as our loyal listeners will recall, last week's clown of the week was Anthony Scaramucci, the MOOCH. The MOOCH. And then not 24 hours after we published the podcast, Anthony Scaramucci got fired like a fucking idiot. Like he got John Kelly, the new he got smooched.
The kiss of death. Right. The kiss of death.
Yeah, poisonous smooch. Poisonous smooch to the mooch. So apparently the context behind that is that after Reince Priebus got fired barely a week ago, new chief of staff of the White House, John Kelly, former DHS secretary, he basically came in and was like trying to clean house and was just like, "Mooch, you're out." And Trump was just like, "Okay, fine," you know.
Trump supported that decision. He also apparently supported the firing of Reince because he couldn't pronounce his name. He kept referring to him as Rince Pubes.
Rince Pubes.
Rince Pubes. It's Reince Priebus for all you fans out there. So
that's right. It's Rince Pubis. Yeah, that's right. So Reince Priebus is out. The MOOCH is out. One thing I find kind of funny with that whole affair is that John Kelly coming in, he's like a general. He's like trying to like tighten the ship, but this is kind of like a ship that can't be tightened. I think it's kind of amusing to see like, well, the media covering it as they're going to bring some discipline to the White House when we're just waiting for the next episode of craziness unfolding, right?
To catch a leaker.
Yeah, to catch a leaker.
on this week's episode of To Catch a Leaker. As you know, Rahul, we joked about this before we got on the pod. They've already broke the seal on this one, haven't they?
They have broken the seal. Once you break the seal, it's hard to stop leaking, honestly.
It's hard to stop leaking. Trump broke the seal in the P-tape, the infamous P-tape, which will be released, I guarantee it, probably by the leaker, but yeah.
Once it's released, it'll be very relieving. You know, like releasing leaks. You know, I mean, everyone knows that's good for everyone.
It is. No, that's exactly it. Trump will be very relieved once we all get to see Russian prostitutes relieving themselves on POTUS. But anyway,
so yeah. On that note, there have been some interesting developments this week. One thing I wanted to talk about is this proposal that was released by the White House, what's called the Reforming American Immigration for Strong Employment Act.
Can I get a raise?
Raise. Raise. It's a proposal to slash not illegal immigration, but legal immigration to the U.S. From about 1 million people per year to about 500,000. This doesn't affect H1B visas. It's more like who can enter the process to get a green card and gradually become citizens. Slashing that by 50%. And it's something that I think even like center-right Republicans that wanted to toughen up on illegal immigration, I don't know how they would feel about just reducing all immigration overall. It's basically just saying, fuck immigrants. And it doesn't make a ton of sense, like economically. Immigrants, bring a lot of productivity to the U.S. They occupy a lot, especially lower skilled workers, occupy a lot of jobs that native-born Americans aren't taking anyway. Um, and it just smells, it stinks, it just rots of racism.
Yeah,
Am I right?
you're exactly right. This is Pepe the Frog stuff, guys. Trump is only supporting this because he hasn't built the wall, and he hasn't been able to ban Muslims. So he basically hasn't been able to scratch that right wing nationalist racist itch that he has up there in the White House
It's
with.
like a taint itch, like
It's a
for the
taint
record.
itch,
Yeah.
and we all know Trump's got a big old taint. Okay.
Oh God.
But Tim's finding that out this week for us. But like, look, the thing is, um, Trump thinks that the whole immigration system is not working, even though it has somehow produced three wives for him. Okay, so he is a benefit of getting a raise. Okay, and the other thing here is. We all know that immigration is good for the economy. We know earlier this year, 1,500 economic experts wrote an open letter to Trump, basically reminding him of this fact. And Rahul, they seem to base this whole thing around whether somebody could speak English or not, which is pretty ridiculous considering that the banner that they're marching this under is making it a more merit-based system. But really, it's all about English, no?
Yeah. Well, I mean, so I think the use of like English speaking it is code talk for white people, basically. Like I mean, it's the targets of when you say English speaking kind of threshold to like enter the United States or be eligible for a green card. It's basically saying like we only want people from Canada and Western Europe and former British colonies and stuff that are closer to the Western experience than people that maybe don't speak English. Um, it's, I mean,
Yeah.
it's kind of openly racist in that way. Although I do think there is a funny point. Speaking of English speaking, um, one thing that happened this week was the White House trotted out their little shit right wing subreddit person incarnate, Stephen Miller, to defend the Raise Act in front of the White House press corps. This guy is awful. He's a dorky, moist, white piece of shit. But there was one funny thing that came up. Speaking of English speaking, there was a little testy discussion between Stephen Miller and Jim Acosta from CNN, where
Jim Acosta.
yeah, Acosta, our favorite guy from CNN, he basically posed the question of, well, if we're going to pose these English speaking kind of limits on immigrants, are we only going to allow people from Great Britain and Australia? And this is where I think the left and right can diverge in objection to the question. Stephen Miller, as being a little racist piece of shit, was like, excuse me, like, not all immigrants are non-English speakers. There are a lot of English speakers out there. Like it offends me that you even just pose the idea that only people from Britain and Australia speak English, and therefore, like, we should, ban all non-English speakers. Whereas I would say from the left, I would say as a rightful criticism of CNN Jim Acosta, like, dude, actually, a lot of people do speak English, but they should also be allowed in. Like, it's not just Britain and Australia. But I found that like a funny moment where I almost felt like not defending Stephen Miller, but almost attacking the question from a different tack. Like, dude, a lot of people speak English. People from the fucking Caribbean, people from fucking India, from South America, like all over the world. Everyone speaks English.
Yeah, was he trying to say we don't speak English here in Ireland? Because that's offensive,
I mean, you speak like a different form of English, so that I don't consider the proper Queen's English. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, look, the thing is, Rahul, you're displaying your cosmopolitan bias here yet again.
Mm-hmm.
Just as Stephen Miller accused Jim Acosta of, who Acosta, I believe, is the grandchild of immigrants from Cuba. And Stephen Miller is just a whiny little bitch from Santa Monica who couldn't
Yeah,
get laid in high school. So
exactly. No, and this is something like don't even get me going on this Stephen Miller asshole. He's from Santa Monica, California, as like cosmopolitan coastal as possible. He went to Duke University. He's a fucking elitist as much as more than you and I are, and maybe we're elitist, but like he is even beyond that. But trying to invoke that to say that minorities shouldn't have rights, to say that to allow immigration is elitist or something. I don't know. It's an incongruable kind of argument. It's ridiculous, and I fucking hate this guy.
So the issue of who to let into this country and who not to let into this country is about as old as the country itself. It's an issue that America has debated since the early 19th century, and we've admitted people from nearly
Hello! Welcome back to Radio Free USA, sponsored, as always, by Democratic Memes. This is Rahul. We have a special two-man podcast this week. We're joined with Tarek. How are you doing, buddy?
I'm good. Proud member of the two-man army here.
Yeah, two-man army. You might notice conspicuous absence. Tim is actually out golfing. He's doing some undercover research into the lifestyle of Trump. He's eating a lot of KFC and
Chocolate cake.
Yeah, chocolate cake. And we hope to see his findings pretty soon.
That's right. Contrary to popular belief,
Hello! Welcome back to Radio Free USA, sponsored, as always, by Democratic Memes. This is Rahul. We have a special two-man podcast this week. We're joined with Tarek. How are you doing, buddy?
I'm good. Proud member of the two-man army here.
Yeah, two-man army. You might notice conspicuous absence. Tim is actually out golfing. He's doing some undercover research into the lifestyle of Trump. He's eating a lot of KFC and
Chocolate cake.
Yeah, chocolate cake. And we hope to see his findings pretty soon.
That's right. Contrary to popular belief, Tim was not fired by this podcast, unlike Scaramucci, but we'll get to that in a bit.
That's right. I think the first thing we're going to have to talk about is the curse of the clown of the week continues. So as our loyal listeners will recall, last week's clown of the week was Anthony Scaramucci, the mooch. The mooch. And then not 24 hours after we published the podcast, Anthony Scaramucci got fired like a fucking idiot. Like he got John Kelly, the new. He got smooched.
The kiss of death.
Right.
The kiss of death.
Yeah, poisonous smooch. Poisonous smooch to the mooch. So apparently the context behind that is that after Reince Priebus got fired barely a week ago, new chief of staff of the White House, John Kelly, former DHS secretary, he basically came in and was like trying to clean house and was just like, mooch, you're out. And Trump was just like, okay, fine.
Trump supported that decision. He also apparently supported the firing of Reince because he couldn't pronounce his name. He kept referring to him as...
This is something that has been done in the past. It's a dark history, I think, like reducing legal immigration in total numbers, and also which countries are they allowed to come from. It is a real thing that's happened historically. So I think through most of the 19th century, the only countries that were really allowed to immigrate to the U.S., it was Italians, Irish, German, some Chinese people. And then in the early 1900s, that stopped. And then through World War II, that was cut down dramatically. And it was only in the 60s and then later the 80s where there's been a boom of different multicultural, Hispanic, Asian, Middle Eastern people that have been allowed in the country. So I think it's a shame. This bill isn't going to pass, but it's a shame that's even being proposed. It harkens back to old school, like xenophobic tendencies.
It really does, and we all know about the infamous Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882, which I'm sure Trump would support reenacting. There's just a lot of hysteria about immigrants, Rahul, as you know, and you alluded to. The thing that really bugs me is that Tom Cotton, who is like Stephen Miller's idol in the Senate. He's also a whiny little bitch from Arkansas who sits there and if you remember, he was the one who vociferously defended Jeff Sessions during the infamous grilling that he received when he sat before the Senate Judiciary Committee. And they think that immigrants just come here and take welfare, okay? And that's all they do is they collect welfare. But actually, most states actually ban immigrants from collecting welfare for their first 5 years. So if anything, what happens is they're paying into the tax system, because they're working, they can't collect welfare benefits. And even those immigrants who may be here in an undocumented state, they still are they're still paying Social Security taxes, but they're using someone else's Social Security number. Therefore, they're never, ever going to draw down those Social Security benefits. So if anything, you could make an argument that immigrants are bolstering our tax code.
Absolutely.
They're not a drain on it. There are more white people in West Virginia who voted for Trump who collect welfare than immigrants on the Eastern Seaboard. I'd be willing to bet that much right now.
Yeah, and this is all like I think there's such layers to the xenophobia of not only illegal immigration but also legal immigration, where there's some sort of like thought, there's some sort of like some sort of conception that Trump has as being like an old white idiot, that illegal immigrants are committing a lot of crime, and then by extension, then legal immigrants are a drain on the economy, when neither things are true. So, immigrants commit fewer crimes than native-born Americans, and also like basically the fear of being deported, it seems to be a strong enough deterrent that like there's lower crime rates, and among immigrants they're stripped of such fewer rights that they're hustling harder. They're immigrants make America great, like that. I think that's the thing that's like so mind-boggling to wrap your head around, that these guys don't get.
They don't get it. They think that the RAISE Act is going to make America white again, but it's just not going to happen. So Rahul, another big story that broke this week was the fact that the first subpoenas have been issued from a grand jury that has been called by Special Prosecutor Robert Mueller. And this story stood out to me in particular because it shows that basically there was something very sketchy that happened during the infamous Don Jr. collusion meeting in Trump Tower. So basically, one of the subpoenas that was issued from the grand jury came from the position that they are asking the White House to maintain documents from that infamous collusion meeting in Trump Tower. And it seems like it's only a matter of time, Rahul, before Don Jr. Gets subpoenaed himself and has to appear before a grand jury and answer for the attempted collusion, whether the minimum that he can get that they can get this guy for is attempted collusion, because he went to the meeting knowingly with the intention to receive information that was damaging to Hillary Clinton, that came from an overtly Russian government engineered source. So what are your thoughts on this, Rahul? Do you think that this is a big deal, or is this something that we kind of knew was going to happen and no news here?
Well, it's not no news. I do think it's a symbol. What I think primarily is that it's a symbol of progress in this investigation. Like Bob Mueller has kind of been behind the scenes, like assembling, as we mentioned in a previous podcast, like kind of an Ocean's 11 style squad of investigators and lawyers and DOJ officials in order to look into Russia collusion and also just improprieties, obstruction of justice, etc. It's a sign of progress. I don't know if this signal of a grand jury has been impaneled means a ton. It's more that I think the process is continuing, and basically, I think stay tuned, folks, because it seems like there's a there, and they're investigating enough and putting enough resources that this matters, and President Trump's going to be he's going to be pissed off in the next few weeks. He's on vacation right now. He's probably going to spend most of it watching TV and playing golf and getting mad and tweeting and shit. So I think it's a sign of progress, but we just have to wait and see. You know what I mean?
We definitely have to wait and see. Some sources that apparently released this information, what they indicated to I'm looking at a story here from Reuters, was that basically the grand jury is significant because it means that Mueller is in the midst of a predicated criminal investigation. What they mean by that is that he must have reached a point where the evidence, he has evidence of criminal conduct, folks. Evidence of criminal conduct. That's the only way that he can get subpoenas out of a grand jury, and that it can't. And grand juries can't be used for a fishing expedition, basically. So it can't be used as a political tool to sort of engage in a political witch hunt. So there's definitely smoke there.
There's smoke there. The thing, actually, I was doing some reading this week. Yeah, after I heard about the grand jury being impaneled, I was researching into what's the nature of a grand jury? How does it differ from normal criminal juries, etc. I'm already foreseeing a future where Trump is going to say that grand juries as a system are rigged. I could see this happening very easily because grand juries have a much lower kind of legal standard to issue a subpoena than issuing a verdict in a criminal trial. Criminal trials are beyond a reasonable doubt. That's the legal threshold. Civil trials are a preponderance of the evidence. Grand juries are just kind of the prosecutors go in and just is it worth investigating this? It's a lower legal standard. So part of me, when I was reading this, I was like, oh shit, Trump's gonna we're gonna see some tweets where he's just the grand jury system is rigged. Everyone knows it. The system is fucked, and it's partially true because in cases of police abuse of unarmed African American citizens, kind of a Philando Castile, the Michael Brown, all those cases, grand juries failed to indict the police officer, and part of it is that there's a lower legal standard. But I'm foreshadowing. Trump could just
You're
be
right.
Grand juries are bullshit. He could say that.
Grand juries are bullshit, except for when they're called to sort of basically, get African Americans to go to jail for low-level drug offenses.
Yeah,
that's Trump's logic.
Grand juries are bullshit when they're investigating Trump. Is basically what the logic is going to be.
They're bullshit.
Yeah. So
exactly.
I'm calling it now. He's gonna tweet some stuff about subpoenas or indictments in the future where he's just but everyone, isn't the grand jury system bullshit? And then there's a small amount of truth in that, but he's just doing it to defend himself.
Exactly. And the other thing that came out of this was, I mentioned earlier, the fact that it wasn't a formal subpoena, but Mueller and his investigators asked the White House to produce documents related to Michael Flynn as well. So basically, what they've done here is Michael Flynn, who is the now disgraced and prior to the MOOCH, the fastest to a resignation in the Trump White House.
MOOCH was fast.
MOOCH was fast. And MOOCH technically didn't even start yet. You know about this? So MOOCH's official start date was August 16th. So
yeah, dude.
Failure to launch.
There's that meme where it's someone who's the dude who's out thinking the world. It's you can't get fired from a job you didn't already start.
That's what they call premature leakage, Rahul. Mooch is the leaker. No, you're exactly right. You can't get fired if you haven't started yet. But Mike Flynn, basically, we all know that he failed to disclose that he was acting as an agent of the Turkish government at some points during the campaign when he had lobbied the president or the current president for Turkish businessman Ekim Alptekin, whose company basically paid Flynn something like $500,000 between September and November 2016. So Flynn's out there accepting $500,000 from a Turkish businessman, lobbying Trump on behalf of a foreign government. And meanwhile, the administration is trying to pretend like there's nothing shady has ever happened here. I mean, this is just, I think the dominoes are beginning to fall. And the thing for me, though, that I can't get over, just to go back to the topic of collusion, how can they continue to say that they did not collude with the Russian government when Don Jr. literally replied, "Yes, I love it," to an email that said that they were going to give him information about Hillary that was a part of a Russian government's plot? I mean, that is collusion. Like, you don't need to. I mean, it's like these guys have some really, really high, high-minded definition of what collusion is, and they're like, no, we didn't sit there and like draw up game plans together. No, but what you did do is conspire to accept information from a foreign adversary to damage your opponent. That is called collusion.
Yeah, I think throughout the campaign in 2016 and through now, I think if you talk to a Trump supporter, if you talk to or certainly like the Trump campaign themselves, there's kind of a "so what" response, like a "so what" or "who cares" response to every question, where it's testing the like legal framework of this democracy, like where it's like, well, you're not supposed to say that. You shouldn't say that. So what? Isn't
Do
that
what I want.
yeah, exactly. Isn't that wrong? Who cares? Yeah, like they'll pose that question every time. Fox News will back it up. Certainly, like a Breitbart and alt-right shit, that they're gonna back that up and just say like, who cares? Wait, what? Any question that would have been posed to Obama or Bush, frankly, in the same context, like all of them would have had enough pride and kind of faith in democracy to try to at least explain themselves. These guys are just like, they say, "So what? Who cares?" to every question.
So what? Who cares?
Yeah.
The one thing that they can't say "so what? Who cares" about, though, apparently, is the leaker. Right? All these leaked transcripts that came out this week.
Mm-hmm.
The leakers. It's like the DC leakers and the LA Lakers. That's how they work. They're becoming a professional sports team.
It's a new NBA team, right? The
DC Leakers.
Yeah.
The Wizards are changing their name to the Leakers.
Oh, the Wizards and Leakers. There's a common theme there.
Exactly. Yeah. So this week, Rahul, the transcripts got leaked. We knew there was there's like a little leakage a couple months ago, right after these calls initially came out, where people did put out there that Trump apparently, yelled at the Australian Prime Minister. But what did you make of the highlights from the latest transcripts, Rahul?
Yeah, it turns out the Washington Post they were one of the leakers. It turns out. I mean, they leaked some of the leaks. There were a couple of transcripts that came out that were official White House transcripts of conversations with Mexican President Enrique Peña Nieto and another one with Australian Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull that seemed to be pretty revealing. Tarek, what were your thoughts on that? I think there were some things that were like that were very interesting and insightful into the personality of the president.
Yeah, exactly. The one thing I was looking for that I didn't quite get was I thought Trump was going to surely call Peña Nieto Mr. Enrique Pina Colada, but that didn't exactly bear out in the transcripts. Apparently he told Enrique, I won New Hampshire because New Hampshire is a drug-infested den at one point. Okay. To which we all just scratch our head because What are you fucking talking about, Trump? And you didn't win New Hampshire. Okay, this just shows you how much of a fucking lunatic he is. Okay, like he won New Hampshire in the
He's
primary. So is he saying? So is he
he's such
saying
a
that?
he's such a dementia-addled like old man that like, well, A, he's wrong about the entire concept. He did not win New Hampshire, and then B, he insulted all the entire populace of New Hampshire. In a granted, I will say, granted, these types of conversations between foreign leaders are not supposed to be leaked. So
Yeah.
Tarek, I think it's fair to say that if some conversation with Obama and Malcolm Turnbull or Enrique Peña Nieto leaked, it's not good. They should be able to have conversations in good faith.
Yeah.
But like, this is so ridiculous, and it's an official transcript. It's not. Yeah, it's not like this was some like third-hand account. It's in the transcript. He says New Hampshire is a drug-infested den, like insulting an entire swing state. This is ridiculous.
He didn't even win,
and he didn't win it. Like
what's he trying to say here? Like, so he won in the. Let's just try to follow the Trump logic train here. So he won New Hampshire in the primary because it's a drug-infested den, because everybody was high, and that's why they voted for him.
It's so beautifully wrong, layered. It's wrong in a layered way, where he's like, A, he's insulting all the people. B, he doesn't know what he's talking about. He didn't win the fucking state. He doesn't care. He's just, I mean, he had said previously that New Hampshire only went blue because, like fucking illegal immigrants from Massachusetts were going up to New Hampshire or something, right?
Yeah.
Like they were busing them in
Yeah, no, it's ridiculous, man. But he also, I don't have the exact quote here, but he also essentially told Peña Nieto, stop saying that you're not going to pay for the wall publicly. Okay, he's like, you're killing me here.
I love this.
It's like it was kind of like, just tell people that we're going to work it out. And
it was so sad and pathetic. It was he says in the transcript, I don't have the exact quote, but he basically says like, look, you have to pay for the wall. I told people that you're going to pay for the wall. Like, I mean, I'm in a bind. Like, I told people you're going to do that, so you have to do that. And then
exactly.
Nieto is like, no, like.
He's like, no,
like he's supposed to be the grand negotiator, and it's the saddest, most pathetic negotiation ever.
It is really sad and really, really pathetic. And I did find a quote here. So basically, this one is from the conversation with the Prime Minister of Australia. So if you remember, President Obama reached a deal with Prime Minister Turnbull to basically accept something like 1,200 or so refugees from Australia, because Australia was hit pretty hard by a refugee crisis, and they're keeping a lot of refugees on an island that's kind of isolated, aside. It's not on Australia itself, but and it came under criticism internationally for the conditions on those islands. So Obama was trying to be the good guy that he is and help out, take some of these refugees in, and apparently Trump said to him, "This is going to kill me. I am the world's greatest person that does not want to let people into the country." I'm the world's greatest person who doesn't want to let people into the country. I've had it. I've been making these calls all day, and this is the most unpleasant call all day. Putin was a pleasant call. This is ridiculous. That's how he ended the call with the Prime Minister of Australia.
Yeah, I think regardless of the Putin aspect, the whole Russia thing, maybe we can set aside for the moment to really appreciate this phrase of "I am the world's greatest person that does not want to let people into the country." So I think Stephen Colbert pointed out, like, is there a comma in this statement? I'm the world's greatest person who does not want to let people into the country, or he's the best person who
at not letting people into the country.
Yeah, he's the best at not letting people into the country. It's just mind-boggling. Like, day in, day out, like he's a dementia-addled, like, old Fox News viewer who just yells at his TV screen and can't string together a fucking sentence. And the
No,
idea
we
that
can't.
this is like a behind the scenes conversation on an official transcript, like this is embarrassing for the goddamn nation.
It is really, really embarrassing. But the thing for me is he then tried to like basically kiss Peña Nieto's ass, and he was telling that he has beautiful words. You have beautiful words, you know. And he kept, and then this is another quote. I don't know if you saw this. He said, I want you to be so popular that the people of Mexico will amend the constitution to allow you to serve an extra term. This is literally what he said. Like, if for those, this would be funny if he wasn't such a blatant authoritarian himself. So the Mexican constitution only allows the president to serve 1 6-year term, and Trump is over here endorsing the idea of changing the Mexican constitution to let somebody stay in longer than 1 term. Okay, like this is absolutely absurd. And he was doing that to butter him up by like, oh, you have beautiful words, you know, like the people they must love you in Mexico.
Beautiful words. You have the best words.
Beautiful. You have the best words. And I'm the world's greatest person at not letting refugees into the country. So the leaked transcripts, I'm just waiting for more, honestly. Because this is great. Like, kudos to the White House leaker. If we had an opposite of the clown of the week, it would be whoever this White House leaker is, Rahul. Do you agree with that?
Yeah. No, I'd agree. The leakers are the heroes of the year, basically.
The DC leakers.
Yeah, that's right. The DC leakers. They're going to be a new MLS team coming up, I believe. Yeah.
That's exactly it. Should we get on to clown of the week?
Yeah, I think so. I'm gonna go with our boy, our bald, white, moist, disgusting boy, Stephen Miller. Yeah, he's a policy. Formerly, he's a policy advisor for the White House. But I think to us that are we're around the same age as him, and I despise this person. He mentioned cosmopolitan bias for Jim Acosta, but he's from Santa Monica, California, to Duke University. He just reminds me of every like kind of he feels like he's in the alt-right subreddit realm of things, and that's something that we're gonna have to deal with for a generation. And we'll see what happens with him. What this bill, the Raise Act, is not going to pass, but we're going to see what happens with him in the future. I think he's a gross symptom of what I sense is like a right wing disease that we have as millennials a little bit. So I just want to nominate him as Clown of the Week because he just resurfaced like a cancer that was in remission but has popped up again.
That's exactly it. And for me, it's funny. Like the White House is understaffed. We know that, and the few staff that they have, they seem to just fire or they resign every once in a while. Like, why did they stroll out Stephen Miller this week, Rahul? It's like, are they just there's like a rotating roster of clowns of the week that they bring out there.
I think it was probably a Bannon move, where it's just like when you do something overtly racist, it's like. Bannon can't show his face in the sun, otherwise his skin is gonna like deteriorate. So he needs to trot out his like young, the young blood
protege.
His young protege. So I think that's when Stephen Miller pops his face out.
Is it possible? Are you insinuating that Steve Bannon feeds on the blood of the youthful Stephen Miller?
I think so. Yeah. There's probably a procedure in the background where there's some sort of blood transfusion going on.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the world's first fascist transfusion taking place there in the back of the White House. Well, Rahul, that's tough to beat. For me, I'm going to actually nominate our old friend Kellyanne Conway, who she was delusional before delusional was cool in this White House. Kellyanne this week went on Fox and Friends and didn't rule out the idea of using lie detectors to catch the infamous White House leaker. She also apparently said to Fox and Friends, it's easier to figure out who's leaking then the leakers may realize, well, guess what, Kellyanne? Why the fuck haven't you found these leakers yet? You really are going out there saying that it's very easy to find the leakers, and you haven't found the leakers yet, and then you're saying it's so easy, but we may use a lie detector. Kellyanne, this is ridiculous, and somebody should let you know that lie detector tests have very low accuracy rates. I mean, we're talking 65% at best. Do you think that our leaker or leakers have made it this far?
I think it's again, there are layers to how ridiculous that notion is. Number one, all right, Kellyanne Conway might be the next communications director. She is ridiculous on her own merits. Number two, polygraph tests that, as you mentioned, are not very accurate or consistent historically. It represents like a 1970s style of thinking, which Donald Trump also represents. So it's actually kind of perfect that, like, not only is it Kellyanne Conway is endorsing this, but it's a methodology that is not reliable whatsoever. And number three, the White House is full of liars. They're all goddamn liars. And actually, well, I just found a fourth layer here. The notion of leaking, part of it is because when you're in like whether it's in a corporate company or just some sort of job, people start leaking to the press when they don't trust the people in charge. So there's a lack of trust in general, and so they don't realize, like the Trump White House doesn't realize the solution to that is that they should build a community of trust. They're actually just like stamping out more people that are upset with them, and then that actually creates more leakers. Like it actually, like it's such like a dumb whack-a-mole thing that they're trying to do.
I think there's a correlation between when leaks are released and when Trump is spotted walking around the White House in a bathrobe. I think that will erode trust pretty quickly, Rahul, to your point about trust.
Is he leaking in the bathrobe?
I think he's leaking through the bathrobe, and that's when the leaker releases the leaks, if you know what I mean. So, so we're all just happy to be courtside here watching the DC leakers, who are, at first we thought they were a new NBA team. Rahul insinuated they might
soccer,
be a new MLS team, but soccer is pretty foreign, man. Like these guys don't play soccer. Okay, soccer is like is a European and Spanish sport. Okay, like we're trying to cut immigration by 50%, Rahul.
That's right. Yeah.
That's exactly. But I bet you the green card by marriage is going to escape unscathed here, because then Trump would be screwed for his like fourth and fifth marriages. But I don't know.
But white marriages are fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
white people from Great Britain and Australia will be able to immigrate and get married, but nobody else. So.
Mm-hmm. So I think it's been a pretty, I think, sufficiently ridiculous week that we've been able to comment on. So, Tarek, do you have any last parting thoughts?
A parting thought here, but this goes back to Trump's point around winning New Hampshire for being a drug-infested den. New Hampshire, apparently, this is breaking news, guys, is changing their slogan from "Live free and die" or die to "Live high and die," because Trump outed them as being a drug-infested den. So, live high and die.
Live high and die.
My parting wisdom.
I agree. I totally agree. So I think it's been a fruitful and it's been a good week to discuss what's been going on. But until next week, this has been Radio Free USA.